Hello, everyone. I'm Liz Farrell, Artistic Director of Painting, Drawing, and Printmaking in our Artists in Residence program. Welcome to our Artists in Residence slide night. I want to welcome our virtual participants watching tonight, as well as our Board of Trustees and members of our National Council. Thank you for your support. So 15 artists just arrived at the ranch, and we'll be working in the studios here for the next 5 weeks. We'll be hearing from each of them tonight. Before we begin, if folks in the audience could please silence your cell phones. Anderson Ranch acknowledges that our campus resides on the traditional ancestral territory of the Ute people, who've called the Roaring Fork Valley and beyond home for over 800 years. Through our mission to promote a wide range of arts, cultures, and voices, we commit to partner with and honor the indigenous ancestors and residents of this sacred land where we learn, work, and create. So please join me in welcoming our artists in residence. All right.
Beep, beep. Howdy. Hi, everyone. How we doing? My name is Brian Omar Juarez, but my friends call me Koosh, K-O-O-S-H. So forward, back. Okay, excellent. Great. So I guess we'll start off with recent works. For the last 15 years, I've been working in interiors, architecture, and most lately in commercial real estate, doing build-outs for retail experiences. The last 15 years or so have been focused doing both teaching myself skills in CAD, CNC, design, project management, all the way out to bidding projects for like luxury homes. And I'm gonna show you some process images of the last 15 years that I've got up. Excuse me. This model up here on the right is a 12-foot tall 3D print for the Texans in the stadium. It's like their office space art. On the left, I have some retail experiences. That very bottom left is the first Skims pop-up in Los Angeles. This is a really cool project. I took a 1947 trailer and we turned the interior into an English drawing room for an equestrian English-style riding clothing brand. But for the most part, I've been doing this with my time. My business is called Grease on Breeze. We do consulting. And essentially, I'm a key partner for creatives to come and get some crazy things made. I moved that from the top right image is the Hyperloop Hypertrain. It was supposed to be like teleported at a high-speed train from one place to another. I moved it from the Smithsonian in DC to the Transportation Museum in St. Louis. But for the most part, has been I've been designing, fabricating, and shopping out work like this. What brings me to the ranch now is kind of this break. Like, obviously, this we're here to support like artists from the fires. I had my entire industry crash. I'm based on public events, and without public events, COVID was the first drop down. The fires were the second, where people just weren't gathering in public anymore, and that's the majority of where my work goes. So I took a chance and started focusing on ceramics, again, which I had not done in a very long time. These are tessellations, or 5-sided tiles. You start off with just a vector graphic. I do CAD design. Since I didn't have access to a kiln, I did these all with hydrocal, so I made silicone or urethane molds. And then brought them out from the PC to a wall piece after that. This is on the bottom left, that's about 9 feet wide and about 3 feet tall. And all this stems back to my training in art school, where I was hyper-focused on historical ceramics, specifically the Andalusian Spain, North Moroccan, Timurid period of Islamic architecture. So I was very focused in pattern, style, and tessellation, kind of complex geometries have always turned my brain on. That's it for me, though. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Clay No, and my artist name is Clen Clen, where you can find me on Instagram. And I'm a painter, a sculptor, and a ceramicist. And this is one of my paintings. It's called Shooting the Healing Fantasy Star. I returned home in my early 30s into Los Angeles to be with my mother again, which was a very interesting time and of development for myself, where a lot of self-exploration and study of psychology. Healing fantasy comes from Lindsay Gibson's book, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, and it's this idea of letting go of this healing fantasy, which was very influential in my relationship with my mother. I am also interested within my study of psychology. I studied a lot of Freud, and so just very briefly, there's this idea of the id and this idea of pleasure, and then so like a child would want to touch themselves or want to have the nipple of their mother, and then there's the superego, which is maybe like religion or things of telling us that we can't do that. And so a lot of my work is this contradiction or this conflict between, I guess, psychology of the superego that's conflicting with the id that produces our personality, which is the ego. Here you can see that I'm also interested in Buddhism, which is also weirdly about pleasure and our tolerance of pain. And it's this figure that has orifice and phallus objects coming out of it. So it's kind of like my interpretation of what pleasure might look like, or in the times of unwantedness, or in times of when we're having triggered. Yeah? Oh, 1 minute, okay. And so for me, like, I'm interested in this idea again of the superego, of this idea of like, I make purses. I got really interested in purses that also look like locks. And so it's the same thing of having this conflict or contradiction of the superego and the ego. So this is another interpretation of a ceramic sculpture. This is a figure in the shower with a metal curtain. And it's my experience being queer and going to bathhouses. And this is my exploration of concrete, because I wanted to use materials outside of ceramics. And finally, this is a tile piece that I made, and this is what I will be focused on at my time at Anderson Ranch. I think I will continue to make tiles, but instead of it being zoomed out, I will have a singular image in the modulation. And for me, learning about psychology, I hope that people will also be interested and have an entryway into discovering more about themselves and the relationship with others. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Jane Orr. I'm just gonna click to the next one. No. I got it. Okay, I was trained as a potter when I was younger, but pretty quickly after graduating Alfred, I moved to Detroit and I got really interested in collaborative making. So I started a studio with a few other friends, and we started making these large-scale public works. So this is, it was called Share Detroit, and we made anagrams of that phrase and then rode around with our bicycle buddies and made these different kind of images. So Hearts Do Tire was placed in front of the VA hospital. So I was in Detroit for about 11 years. I did construction, I was a bartender, and we also had this studio. But I ran out at a point of energy in terms of that hustle. So I went on to grad school, where I became interested in the precarity of building. So this was actually an earthquake shake table. So I took a ceiling fan, took off 2 or 3 blades, and it's on a spring-loaded table. So there's this very, very eerie feeling of the rocking chair moving. This really came from a period where I was figuring out my creative energy. So I had this cadence where I would throw on Sundays, trim on Tuesdays, bake cakes on Wednesdays and then paint on Saturdays. And I was able to make really clean work at that time, which was really exciting because all of that excess energy was being kind of worked out. And then COVID hit. And all of that kind of cadence, that pattern left me. And you can see that I'm still interested in the precarity of building, so I was CNCing drywall down to the paper to show that kind of light could come through. I was throwing at the same time. I got the 1 minute mark, so I'm speeding ahead. At this point, I started manically throwing, I'm gonna say compulsively, but to do that, I really had to work through some of the difficulties I had in the beginning, so I started making puzzle jugs. It's a medieval drinking game. They're very complicated. This is the only one I have left because they got lost in the fire. It's actually with me, so I'm not gonna explain how puzzle jugs work, but this brings me here to what George Orr, Mad Potter of Biloxi, his studio burned. He called all of the work that came from the ashes his burned babies, so I knew when I was going up to Altadena that I was gonna have my own burned babies, so this was a puzzle jug that I found, and I think that glob on the back is my overhead projector that melted and fused onto it. It used to have arms. That's what I have left. Thank you. And then...
Okay. Hi, I'm Lily. Okay. So I have an illustration background, but I'm here for doing pottery. I work as a freelance illustrator. And I studied that at Art Center College of Design, graduated 2023. This is a comic I made for a group publication, made it recently, hasn't come out yet, about the fires. And my experience going to different local fire relief centers in a day. And now I'm ended up in Yucca Valley, California, followed my parents there after they decided to move there, and now, like, my whole family's there. My family has a business out there, like a gallery and store, and so I work there and help out there. And so here's some more illustration work. The comic there is about growing up in the LA art scene with other little kids of artists' parents and playing on the floor of galleries. And another really influential thing for me was to attend tabling events, zine fairs, Comic-Con, stuff like that with my parents who are illustrators. And I would kind of sell my little $1 zines on the side. And I learned a lot from doing that, and it kind of was very influential for me. And so this is some of the commercial work I do. I've done recently. I've done this at the tops for like Blue Q, product design. I love doing that kind of stuff. On the bottom is some wrapping paper for LA Times that hasn't come out yet, but that's just the most recent thing I've done. And then here's some of my ceramic work. I've been doing ceramics just as long as drawing and doing illustration. I started when I was 14 at my local pottery studio in Sierra Madre. But now I work out of a home studio and have my kiln at home. Let's see, where am I? It's a really good balance for me. I need this balance of the commercial illustration work and then the ceramic work that I treat as I want to keep it as this experimental space for me. I don't sketch or plan anything that's going onto my pottery. I just go for it and do the illustration on there. So it really ends up being like a sketchbook. And I also, all my work, I keep it very positive. I keep it about themes of reassurance, positive affirmations. There's a lot of, I'll have writing on there, building strength. And it's just a meditative space for me that balances out my illustration work that's more commercial and working with clients. The last series I made before the fires, I was just getting into making these tree sculptures where I was pushing myself to work more sculpturally and less relying on the surface illustration. And I was trying to make a positive kind of icon to encourage me and push me forward when I was dealing with a lot of new beginnings. I was newly married, newly graduated college, and newly moved out of my childhood home to Altadena. And so now, and then the fires kind of paused that, and now I'm gonna be continuing on that series here, hopefully, it'll have a lot of new meanings attached to it. And since I moved to Joshua Tree, those trees, I want to do some Joshua trees, which are such iconic and strong, beautiful trees. This is the largest piece I've made, and it was at the Infinite School Big Build workshop taught by Julia Halfkendel. So that's like the biggest I've gone. It's like, I don't know, 3.5 feet or so. So yeah, just looking forward to continuing on this series. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Noah Jackson. I was born in Utah, primarily a ceramicist and a sculptor, but I have a background in filmmaking too. Once I hit grad school, I kind of became obsessed with ceramics, and that kind of took over my practice. This piece is called Pioneer, and it's porcelain and tape and plastic. And I was working with sort of slip molds and hand building at the time. And I was kind of looking at a lot of Frederick Remington sculpture at the time and wanted to sort of subvert the romanticism of like his work, but also kind of pay like homage to it. So there's like, you can't see it super well in this photo, but there's like the Chevron with Techron cars from the gas station like ad campaign in the plastic, sort of with this, what I see is like a pioneer woman walking through landscape. Yeah. And this is a little more recent work. This is a piece called The General, and it's an aluminum shelf with upholstery foam, leather, and UV prints and ceramic. And I guess I was like, it's named after a Buster Keaton film, but I guess like this piece and some like pieces from this series are kind of about, like, I was just watching so much TV and like the feeling of dissociation and just I kind of got obsessed with the act of watching like TV and that state of mind. Yeah. This is another piece from that series called Immortal Beloved. And there's a lot of sort of materials in it. There's like a TV, a UV print, a candle, there's horsehair, upholstery foam. And yeah, it's sort of the same series, same ideas. This piece is called Pilgrim Theater. And I make a lot of my own glazes, and that's like a really important part of my ceramic work is sort of the color and the texture of these glazes that I sort of painstakingly make. And yeah, super important. This piece is called Zombie, and this is a really recent work. Just trying to like simplify things and get to like a essence of the clay. And there's white canvas pieces, and porcelain, stoneware, and aluminum. Yeah, I don't know. I might like at 1 minute. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Joel. I'm a mixed media artist. Okay, this first slide is from a show I had about a month ago. It was called Nothing Ever Happens Until It Does. I started this work about a year and a half ago. A lot of my work, I like to build things up and tear things off, use different materials, and sort of come to a point where I find sort of a direction to go in that makes sense to me. So I was working on this show, doing that. A lot of stuff like this, just a lot of layering, using resin, paint, anything I could find really. So I was doing that, and then last January, lost my house in the Altadena fire, and most of my artwork, most of this stuff was safe because it was, I have a studio separate. So I started going through what I was working on for the show and noticing connections between sort of the destruction and what I was working on, and finding weird coincidences with it. So those paintings up there I made before the fire, and then those pictures were photographs of sort of the ashes of my house, and then those objects were kind of found objects, what I could find in the ashes. But I was sort of thinking about like sort of a flattening of time, and there was also, there's this concept called lachicism, which I found after the fire, which sort of refers to the sort of desire for a disaster in order to create sort of like clarity from disaster. And so I started thinking of it in terms of my own work, like subconsciously, was I doing something like that? And then this kind of, lachicism is sort of based on Lachesis, who's one of the three muses in Greek mythology. And so I started thinking about that, and like the thread of time and fate and fires and people who actually want desire, or who actually want tragedy. And so the whole show sort of revolved around that. Yeah, there's a couple more that super layered. I like to, very process oriented. And I think while I'm here at the ranch, I would like to sort of leave this behind and get back to basics. I come from illustration and photography background, so I'd like to do a lot more drawing and photos and some printmaking, and yeah, see where it goes from there. That's it. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Olivia Hill. Thank you for everyone that made this residency possible. This is really special. This is an installation shot from a show I had last year at Bel Ami Gallery in Los Angeles. The show is called Terraform. I'm mainly a painter. I work in both oil and acrylic. And I mostly focus on the human mark in the landscape and human intervention in the landscape. This is a recent painting called Angel. It's oil and acrylic, and it's roughly 6 by 6 feet, making the angel form, the body in the middle, about my size. And so if you see me out in the sandy volleyball court making a sand angel, or a snow angel for that matter, just know that I'm working. This is a detail, or two details of that painting. I use a lot of different methods of getting the paint on the canvas, and they're very textural because of that. So here I used, for this sort of shell-like form on the right, I poured acrylic paint, and on the left, this is spray paint that I applied first, and then I put objects down on the canvas and stenciled them onto the canvas. And then I get this sandy texture by splattering oil paint. I put this one in here for the skiers out there. This is a painting of Mammoth Mountain, and I have done a couple paintings that were based on these snowmaking pools, snowmaking reservoirs on ski slopes. And then here I have this video's about roughly 2 minutes long, and it's a video of my process. I often use natural materials. So I collect things like flowers and rocks and artifacts that are usually from the environment that I'm depicting in the painting. This was an already dead butterfly. No animals are harmed in the process. So when it comes to deciding what sorts of techniques and objects to use to make my paintings, it's just kind of like by any means necessary. And whatever I can find that I think most both depicts what I'm trying to create and also sort of embodies it. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lynn McDaniel. Yes, okay. So I was completely the opposite of Lily. For a long time, my work was about disasters and catastrophes, and then just about a couple years ago, I decided I needed to try and find some peace. This is a painting called Magic Hour. That's the detail on the bottom, and it's just sort of a basic folded book structure. This is oil on paper, and it's the walk I take around my neighborhood in Altadena. A lot of my work is about I use the context of geography to talk about the impact of a human presence and our effect on nature. I tend to work in series, and this is part of a series exploring celestial phenomena. This was last year's supermoon, and I happened to be on the freeway in Los Angeles headed back to Altadena, and I was trying to get a good view of it, and it was pretty difficult. It kept eluding me. These are oil on panel. there we go. This is a project I started in 2018. It's called the Anxiety Project. These are oil on paper. Each painting is 8 inches by 8 inches, with the palette sort of referencing vintage Polaroid photographs. And it's just a way for me to express my anxiety and a coping strategy for what's going on in the world. And this is just one of them up close. It's called Flag. And this is the only work I've been able to make this year since the fire. These are just like little postcards. Most of them are 6 by 8 paintings of places that I used to go hike in or walk in that either aren't there anymore or I can't get access to. And that's it.
Hi, I'm Sam. I work mostly in photography, but also in some video and writing at times, and I'm just kind of showing you chronologically some projects. This is me. This is from a project that was a multi-year project condensed into one. I'm only showing you one photograph, but about this saint. If you see the figure up top, it's Saint Wilgefortis, who was a Catholic saint that was struck from the calendar. She was also a bearded woman, and I found her through looking for connections for polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is something I have, that creates hirsutism, or hair growth. And she basically was taken off the calendar because she was associated with queerness, transness, and she represented people you would pray to, or you would pray to her if you were a survivor of assault or domestic violence or entrapment. So to me, I got very engrossed in her story and kind of the parallels with contemporary politics, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I went on some pilgrimages of a kind to find her. This is in Austria, and they used to change her body. They would take her iconography once she was struck and make her into Jesus. So that's why I'm posed like that with her. This is a project called Self-Portrait Service, which I'm very interested in collaboration, the power dynamics of the camera, the history of photography, and within that, intimacy and surveillance. This is a project with a collaborator. This picture is here. This is my collaborator, V. Haddad, an amazing artist. And we have an ongoing project where we basically take photographs of queer people, however you identify as that, that you choose how you're photographed, because we were interested in this idea that like there are so many representations of queerness and queer history, but they're often through one particular lens or style, you know, and those are beautiful, but what would it be like if someone actually designed their own portrait? And then people write text next to it. And so it's kind of a pairing of two types of portraits. This is a project I did in collaboration with 2 other artists, my friend Crystal and Siobhan, talking about the intersections of incarceration, queerness, and the law, aka property. I won't go into too much detail because it's long and I don't have time, but it was in a show that was called Guilty, Guilty, Guilty at Kunststraum Kreuzberg in Berlin, about the notion of like what really is guilt, especially when, you know, this law system is predicated to protect certain people, not others. This is an ongoing project on the right that I do with my dad. He was a survivor of the Kent State Massacre by the National Guard in 1970. I can tell you more about that if you don't know what that is. I talk and make work with him over years about that, and then also talking about the intersections of contemporary politics, especially around state violence and imperialism. This is a video. This is a still from a video, which is why there's text under there. And I paired it with a photograph. I often photograph for organizers, both with and for. And this was a piece in which I felt is in conversation with that, in which basically the action and the protesters slowed down and were able to stop the riot police by blocking them. And, you know, it was a powerful moment. And it was a protest against weapons manufacturers in El Segundo. Yeah. And then my last thing that I'll share with you is kind of what I'm working on now. I lived in Altadena. Our home and our studios burned. I lost all my negatives, a lot of my equipment, not all my cameras and hard drives, but for the most part. And this was something I salvaged, and I'm now working on a project where I've been photographing, kind of trying to make an ode to these images. Photographing what survived to make it last forever, because it's essentially trash now. This was a camera that was given to me by my great uncle, and negatives that I shot are all lost from it. So I just wanted something to keep going, and I'm working with neighbors, and I will be printing a lot of images for my neighbors. Yep, thank you.
Hi, my name's Carmela, and I studied printmaking at Bennington College. And while I was there, I discovered that I love textiles and I love sewing. So I started to do a lot of mending work on my own clothing and my friends and my mom's clothing. So this is an example of some of the hand stitching work that I do. And then I really like to work in a large format out of kind of smaller patchwork technique. So this is a piece that's all hand and machine done on a fabric that's called Dyneema. And I really like material exploration. So to make this piece, I went out and searched for kind of a water-resistant and long-lasting fabric. And it turns out that this fabric is what they use to make tents out of. And it was originally made for sails in the sailing industry. And it's very difficult to cut. You need an X-Acto knife. And so these properties, and also the fact that it was transparent and looked like paper, really drew me to this material. And then this is some process pictures of working with that same Dyneema fabric. And then this is a piece from a couple months ago using that fabric at a residency I did in Mérida, Mexico. And here I actually painted some figures on the Dyneema fabric. And this is a piece that's made out of cut paper. It's Japanese paper, and it's an image of a cedar of Lebanon tree that's all hand cut with a little X-Acto knife. And while I'm here, I want to work on both paper pieces and with this fabric that I showed you guys, Dyneema, and find a way to kind of merge the two materials. And yeah, I was working out of my family house in the Palisades, and it's been a sad, tough year to see everything go. So I'm very grateful to be here and have the space to work. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dakin. I am also very grateful for this opportunity. Whoever's responsible for that, I'm sure it's a group effort, but I am certainly grateful. And right, I need the little clicker. I am a printmaker. This is, it's funny that I didn't think it was going to start with this slide. So I'm a printmaker. I create primarily monotypes. So those are one-of-a-kind prints. I paint on plexiglass or zinc or mylar surfaces. And I like to use a lot of hand-cut stencils. I think that practice goes all the way back to my childhood when I used to like to play with paper dolls. So a lot of my stencils sort of celebrate that activity and that practice. This was created after the fires. The work, I think this is the only piece you'll see that was created after the fire. I lost all of my work in the fire. We lost our home, we lost our studio, and I lost my press. So the opportunity to come here and work with the presses again is one I really look forward to. This is a stencil of my daughter. I like to work with figures and unearthly landscapes and sort of investigate the interior and exterior landscapes also. I love monotype printmaking because I like to play. I really believe in the power of play. And I like to go to a surface and just see what comes up and evolves intuitively out of my process. A lot of my stencils had the image of home, figures, other types of themes and sources that started to take on a very different meaning after the fires. I think while I'm here, I'm going to work on imagery related to the fire and then see where that also evolves, because there's so much here that's inspiring and so many of you that I'm already inspired from. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Arturo, and as an artist, I'm interested in how ideas appear in our imaginations. Specifically, my work tries to capture that moment in thought between nothingness to that clear vision that appears in our minds. This series of work titled I Thought of Numbers, I felt that would best represent that very beginning moment when an idea is forming. So I did several pieces of this, and this slide, this is a close-up of another one of those pieces. Later on, I realized that what I was trying to capture is something that's never static. So I'm working on a collection of paintings at the moment that incorporate moving light, projection mapping, and I have a video to show that painting. There's sound. happens there. You can stop. So they loop. They're painting installations, and they just loop in that way. It's okay. So I also created a series of sculptures that I placed throughout Los Angeles. And the idea behind these were I wanted for them to continually animate. So I thought by using the sun and moonlight to cast a shadow or light, that would perpetually animate the pieces. So here in Anderson Ranch, what I want to work on is making these a little more durable. They're jointed by acrylic, and I think they hold up a little better when people touch them with a metal weld. So that's all I have.
One second. Okay. Hi, I'm Marika. I am going to be showing images from my most recent work, but I'm going to be reading as fast as I can a short narrative text that I had written alongside of the work. And when I had presented this work, which is installed in the bottom right, called Dolphin Visualization, it was formatted with a lot of breathing room in this 8-foot frame that lay parallel to this sculpture. But I was just kind of curious how it would feel to read it alongside of the work itself. Because before it was paired with images from a trip I had in the Californian desert. Okay, it's called It's a Courtesy Thing. We will meet at the airport in Las Vegas by the vending machines with bouquets of red roses. We will rent a car and you will request paper maps for the 4 neighboring states, and they will give you one. You will spread the map out and tape one end to the dashboard and lay 360 miles of the southwestern desert across the front seat. I will not be able to make out the map from the wheel, and you will get into the back seat to watch me drive from behind. I will drive for nearly 5 hours till we have crossed the border into California. You will reach around my neck and drop olives into my mouth. You will tell me the story again of the dolphins that would shift shape into handsome men dressed in white suits and a hat that matches and conceals their blowholes. You will fall into a tangent on what clothing makes a man appear most cute, nodding seriously as you consider where the waistline of a dark wash pant should fit. At the perimeter of the park, we will stop at a Smith's grocery store and press our thumbs into the ends of cantaloupes to check if they have any give, and buy 4 that we fit into an insulated bag with blue hibiscus flowers on the outside. It is 3:30 p.m., and I will feel irritable from driving and say that melons have intricate surfaces, but that no one has intricate ideas about love around big breasts. I will continue to say that to understand the flesh that makes up our chest, we would have to exhaust its nourishment first. You will draw out a diagram of a melon illustrating my instructions. The drawing will demonstrate a hole being carved out of the melon's navel, removing a circular section and a small Y-shaped stem attached. Then you will draw a hand holding a silver spoon with a slight curve, scooping out the orange flesh, and write in a swirly font underneath. Continue this step till the scraping can be felt on your palm through the thinning melon skin. On the last remaining page of your notebook, you will draw pieces of melon skin folded into themselves like gray paper. Underneath this drawing, you will sign your name and write to confirm that, to your knowledge, I have been living in my identified gender for at least 2 years. As we enter the valley, the sun will have begun to set. We will have no plan and follow a trail of headlights up a reddish mountain. At the crest of the mountain that we will later come to know as Dante's View, we will set up camp for the night, mostly mumbling to ourselves. We will share a can of cold chili and compile wimpy desserts like marshmallows stuffed with peanut butter. With your arm wrapped around my side and your hand pressing firmly against my sternum, I will dream of the dolphins. In my sleep, I find myself in a bed in a house off the coast of Massachusetts. There, I interact with forms that make up the room in a cryptic way that isn't sex but feels as relational and intense as sex. A white comforter folds over a pillow beside me with small yellow flowers from which an eye emerges. I understand this textilic form as a female dolphin and feel incredibly nervous and unable to take my eyes away from her. The next day, we will be awoken by water droplets that form on the car windows overnight and fall onto our faces. You will be half asleep while I recall my encounter to you. I will not have shared any words with the dolphin, but as I describe her to you, I will remember what she told me. I will tell you of the dolphin's melon, a sac composed of wax and fat that sits beneath her snout and her blowhole. I will speak matter-of-factly about the way she let me look into her blowhole to make out the foggy substance that she molds inside her head, shaping the way sound passes in and out of her body. I will tell you how the substance of the dolphin is toxic to the melon is toxic to the dolphin, how she will not be able to digest its nutrients regardless of how much she may desire it. You will laugh and tell me that you knew all this already, rubbing the sleep from the creases under your eyes. The sun will have started to rise, and you will crawl into the front of the car to retrieve 2 melons, a metal bowl, and a spoon. I will watch quietly as you flush the fruit entirely into the bowl. You lay out pieces of melon skin on the dashboard, pinning them down with a bone you found yesterday. You will hand me the bowl and a piece of hardened grain bread, and I will eat it. I will think about how I cannot remember the dolphin's name. Only yours will come to mind. And that's it.
Hello, I'm T. Kelly Mason, and let's see, I've been working since 1990 and I teach at the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. I teach art, and I teach myself about art generally by trying to think about, like, what are the people who are looking at it going to encounter, and how does that encounter work, and how do I enhance it in some way. This is a piece from the Laumeier Sculpture Park. It's my first sort of big public piece of art. And I'm an opportunist also. Like this, I went to the park, and someone that I knew was running it, and I was teaching in St. Louis at Washington University, and there were light poles there. And as a former licensed electrician, I thought, opportunity. Why aren't there lights on top of those poles? Why is your parking lot dark? What happens at night? And so at this like amazing sculpture park, I kind of built something with an architect using kind of using 3D modeling and CAD and things to sort of build these letter forms that housed projectors. And the projectors at night project this text onto the landscape. It's about research, really, also, and thinking about what goes on at the park at night. And also, the park is a strange mix of people coming to the park to just do recreation. And, but there's also the natural world. And then there's also, it's crowded with sculpture. So there's all these kind of sculptural ideas floating around. So as I do work with text a lot, and as I've kind of moved forward in my work, I've kind of moved to being more and more explicit. Maybe that's what this next work is about. And this is a recent exhibition. It's from 2019, but I also just showed it 2 weeks ago. I took it down. And this is a series of work called Space Film. It is, in fact, a space film. And the first thing you might encounter is a newspaper, which is kind of the script for space film, but it's also a newspaper. So I mailed that out in lieu of invitations. But it also kind of addresses the fact that when you make a film and you show it in a gallery situation, it's weird. The time is all strange. People might not stay for 45 minutes to watch a feature movie in a gallery. So then this newspaper allows them to sort of see the whole film without seeing it. These sculptures are pretty traditional: wax, plaster, found objects, and they're also the sort of characters in the film. So this is kind of the first room that you walk into. There's a lot of insets because there's not really a sort of a big room with a lot of small things in it. There's a spaceship, astronaut suits, food for astronauts, figures that are part of a dialogue in a dream sequence. Over there in the far corner, you can see one of the robots that travels with the astronauts in the space film. And then the film itself was shown within its kind of set that I made it in. I made it in my van because I was stuck at home in 2017. A little inner ear problem. I couldn't leave the house for about a year. And I'd just gotten this new car. So I thought, and when I kind of did the interior, I thought, this looks like a spaceship. I should make a movie. And so I made this space film. I did everything myself. What you're seeing there is the kind of projection plate, so that when the film is shot inside the car, you have stars on the exterior. And then that's the co-pilot, that's me. That's the pilot, that's me. And so it just was a kind of a sort of an idea that I had. It was like, well, I'm stuck here. I need to make something, and I want to make this sort of total thing that's also transparent. Like you can see how it's made, and also gave me an opportunity to sort of deal with certain things like ceramics. I find enjoyable. It's quite fun to make them, but I don't think of myself as any sort of a expert at it. So I just thought of it more as in this older tradition of like sculptors. What sculptors do with ceramics is they make models that then they pass on to the masons to make like real sculpture out of marble and whatnot. So I just wanted to kind of play with that sort of traditional way of making, and also make this film that allowed me to sort of talk through a lot of things I was thinking about in a really explicit way. I'm told it's kind of funny, and I did all the music and all that, and it's also edited quite it's snappy. The editing is snappy. People stayed around. Like I was, that's always the problem. Like you put something that's 45 minutes in an art gallery, will people stay? And I was pleasantly surprised people stay. And so that is space film. Here's a few more stills. There's, it's kind of silly, but on the other hand, it does all the things that are required of a space film. There's the reason why people might want to escape from the Earth. Then there's this kind of boredom, like a road film, where people have this encounter together that takes place over a long time, and they go through sort of boredom and hostility towards one another. They make up, they find things, like a road picture, like most outer space movies. So anyway, that's the that little video on the side. That's the propulsion system for the van, and that is space film. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Yui. Yeah, I self-identify as a new media artist, and my practice moves between installation, moving image, and writing. So for this piece, it's my graduate thesis work called Where Mountain Breeze Become a Language of Sign. And I built a 3 feet by 3 feet wall with the big window, layered fabric, projection, and fence, where air becomes the both image and voice. So I have the trailer for this work.
妈妈，我们都是出生在山丘间的孩子。某一天走出来了，从暴力的童年里，父亲的刀口下，从那些不稳定中，终于望见平缓的地平线。 沙粒更新着沙粒，盐分加深着盐分，山泉终于变成溪流，才有机会流向大海，去到更深、更远的地方。我们都是从山丘里对着褶皱纹走出来的人，我不说话，偶尔轻柔的心态，像心态你年轻时的裙摆。
Yeah, I often think like language is not only as a tool, but also as a material that breathes. It's fragile, shifting, and full of memory. Also, East Asian literature inspired me a lot, especially for some female writer from Korea and Taiwan has shaped the way I understand the image and the narration. So for my practice, the act of reading is also important. So I did the performative lecture by Mandarin with multilingual subtitle at the same time. Also do some like reading theater like workshop in the Residency. For my practice, not only the language from the human, like also for the cicada, because the female cicada cannot sing at the summer, but male can. So yeah, I'm thinking about maybe their body also can hold the memory of sound. So I started to learn how to distinguish male shell and female shell. So I can scan them and make archive for those cicada shell. And also makes the movable one, shell repeater, female mixed male. Yeah, from left to the right are the box containing only female shares, and the box in the middle is random shares, and the box on the right is male shares. So for me, I think storytelling is not only about the narration, it's also about the relation, like build the kind of interesting interactive or interaction with my viewers in my work. Yeah, I think that's all.